and hide thee in the dust, for fear of the Lord, for the glory of his majesty. The lofty looks of man shall be humble, and the haughtiness of man shall be bowed down, and the Lord alone shall be exalted in that day.
Hello, good day. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. We're continuing our study in the book of Job today. We're in chapter 12 of Job, that forbidden book. Not for all, but for some. And Job answered and said, answering again, who was he talking to? Zophar the Naamathite, who again has a similar theory as his other companions. And Job answered and said, no doubt, but ye are the people, and wisdom shall die with you. But I have understanding as well as you. I am not inferior to you. Who knoweth not such things as these? I am as one mocked of his neighbor, who calleth upon God, and he answereth him. The just upright man is laughed to scorn. I'm going to read that again. I am as one mocked of his neighbor, who calleth upon God, and he answereth him. The just upright man is laughed to scorn. He that is ready to slip with his feet is as a lamp despised in the thought of him that is at ease. The tabernacle of robbers prosper, and they that provoke God are secure, into whose hand God bringeth abundantly. But ask now the beasts, and they shall teach thee, and the fowls of the air, and they shall tell thee, or speak to the earth, and it shall teach thee. And the fishes of the sea shall declare unto thee. Who knoweth not in all these that the hand of the Lord hath wrought this, in whose hand is the soul of every living thing, and the breath of all mankind? Doth not the ear try words, and the mouth taste his meat? With the ancient is wisdom, and in length of days understanding. With him is wisdom and strength. He hath counsel and understanding. Behold, he breaketh down, and it cannot be built again. He shutteth up a man, and there can be no opening. Behold, he withholdeth the waters, and they dry up. Also he sendeth them out, and they overturn the earth. With him is strength and wisdom. With him is strength and wisdom. The deceived and the deceiver are his. He leadeth counselors away spoiled, and maketh the judges fools. He looseth the bond of kings, and girdeth their loins with a girdle. He leadeth princes away spoiled, and overthroweth the mighty. He removeth away the speech of the trusty, and taketh away the understanding of the aged. He poureth contempt upon princes, and weakeneth the strength of the mighty. He discovereth deep things out of darkness, and bringeth out to light the shadow of death. He increaseth the nations, and destroyeth them. He enlargeth the nations, and straiteneth them again. He taketh away the heart of the chief of the people of the earth, and causeth them to wander in the wilderness, where there is no way. They grope in the dark without light, and he maketh them to stagger like a drunken man. Lo, mine eye hath seen all this, mine ear hath heard and understood it. What ye know, the same do I know also. I am not inferior to you. Surely I would speak to the Almighty, and I desire to reason with God. But ye are forgers of lies. Ye are all physicians of no value. Oh, that ye would altogether hold your peace, and it should be your wisdom. Hear now my reasoning, and hearken to the pleadings of my lips. Will you speak wickedly for God and talk deceitfully for him? Will you accept his person? Will you contend for God? Is it good that he should search you out? Or as one man mocketh another, do ye so mock him? He will surely reprove you if you do secretly accept persons. Shall not his excellency make you afraid, and his dread fall upon you? Your remembrances are like unto ashes, your bodies to bodies of clay. Hold your peace. Let me alone, that I may speak, and let come on me what will. Wherefore do I take my flesh in my teeth, and put my life in my hand? Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. But I will maintain mine own ways before him. He also shall be my salvation, for an hypocrite shall not come before him. Hear diligently my speech, and my declaration with your ears. Behold now, I have ordered my cause. I know that I shall be justified. Who is he that will plead with me? For now, if I hold my tongue, I shall give up the ghost. Only do not two things unto me, then will I not hide myself from thee. Withdraw thine hand far from me, and let not thy dread make me afraid. Then call thou, and I will answer. Or let me speak, and answer thou me. How many are mine iniquities and sins? Make me to know my transgression and my sin. Wherefore hidest thou thy face, and holdest me for thine enemy? Wilt thou break a leaf driven to and fro? Wilt thou pursue the dry stubble? For thou writest bitter things against me, and makest me to possess the iniquities of my youth. Thou puttest me... Sorry, my glasses are not good. Thou puttest my feet also in the stocks, and lookest narrowly unto all my paths. Thou settest a print upon the heels of my feet. And he, as a rotten thing, consumeth, as a garment that is moth-eaten. Man is born of woman is a few days. I think that's the he. He's speaking of him. So let's continue reading, just because I want to get to the end of Job's speech, even though I know we will not cover all this. This is a very nice thing to meditate on. I enjoy reading it every time. Even though I think we read up to 13 last time. Let's read through 14, and then we'll stop. Man that is born of woman is of few days, and full of trouble. He cometh forth like a flower, and is cut down. He fleeth also as a shadow, and continueth not. And dost thou open thine eyes upon such an one, and bringest me into judgment with thee? Who can bring a clean thing out of an unclean? Not one. Seeing his days are determined, the number of his months are with thee. Thou hast appointed his bonds that he cannot pass. Turn from him, that he may rest, till he shall accomplish as an hireling his day. For there is hope of a tree, if it be cut down, that it will sprout again, and that the tender branch thereof will not cease. Though the root thereof wax old in the earth, and the stock thereof die in the ground, yet through the scent of water will it bud, and bring forth boughs like a plant. But man dieth, and wasteth away. Yea, man giveth up the ghost, and where is he? As the waters fail from the sea, and the flood decayeth and drieth up, so man lieth down, and riseth not, till the heavens be no more. They shall not awake, nor be raised out of their sleep. Oh, that thou wouldest hide me in the grave, that thou wouldest keep me secret until thy wrath be past. That thou wouldest appoint me a set time and remember me. If a man die, shall he live again? All the days of my appointed time will I wait, till my change come. Thou shalt call, and I will answer thee. Thou wilt have a desire to the work of thine hands. For now thou numberest my steps. Dost thou not watch over my sin? My transgression is sealed up in a bag, and thou sewest up mine iniquity. And surely the mountain falling, and surely the mountain falling cometh to naught, and the rock is removed out of his place. The waters wear the stones. Thou washest away the things which grow out of the dust of the earth, and thou destroyest the hope of man. Thou prevailest forever against him, and he passeth. Thou changest his countenance, and sendest him away. His sons come to honor, and he knoweth it not. And they are brought low, but he perceiveth it not of them. But his flesh upon him shall have pain, and his soul within him shall mourn. Once again. Then his friends again add, we go back to Eliphaz. He's got more to say. Along similar lines, it reminds me of sometimes you get in an argument and people don't listen to what you're saying. You know, you say, let me tell you, I told you before. Because it's mostly the last one, he was like, confess your sin. God will forgive you. He'll restore everything. Just confess your sin. And Job's like, I mean, what, the sins of my youth? And because that's what he's counting. That must be what he's counting against me. I mean, if you take it all on balance, I guess I never deserved anything. I came naked into the world. I'll go out naked. I mean, Job understands God. And later on, God's going to tell him, yep, Job, you get it. And he tells his friends that they better listen to Job. More or less. They're wrong. They think they're talking for God. They're going to, and this is I say, they're more right, because they're accusing Job of being more righteous than God. But they're the ones. And I like the way he describes it. I'm kind of jumping ahead, but when he talks about respecting persons, even with God, because on a certain level, it's like when Satan tempted Jesus to do something foolish. God doesn't do tempting, but he allows the tempter to come. The deceived and the deceiver are his. That's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people because they don't understand. No, we don't. We don't have understanding. We have a level of understanding as men. We can listen. Saying we have the Bible, we hold it in reverence. It's the Word of God. Well, then listen to the words of the wise. I mean, some people believe this was they just rattled this off in conversation. It's brilliant. I would have thought you would have to meditate on this for a long time. I mean, truth be told, Job has meditated on it a long time. And maybe they did have stenographers. They didn't have stenographers, but they had something similar. Oh, yeah, it doesn't matter. The point is, what is it saying? Because the thing is, does this really happen? It really happens all the time. I've said this several times. Job, some much lower level version of Job is repeated every day. Every day people suffer, and it's not necessarily that God is punishing them for their sins. It's for us to take like I said, it's like, what did you ever do to alleviate suffering before you go, blaming God for it or blaming the people? See, on some level, and in a sense, blaming God for it, Job is saying it's God's business. God's the one who unleashes this stuff and allows it. He has ultimate responsibility for everything. That's what I always teach. You have to have if you don't have God in the position of ultimate responsibility for what happens, I don't know how that seems like theologically just in La La Land to me, I guess. It's like, no, God must be in control. That's what we say. How else do all things work together for good for those that love God? All things, even things like this. Otherwise, there is no hope. And not unless you're just going to have this, you're going to live in a delusional world, like a lot of Americans do, because we live in such relative safety. It's easy to live in an imaginary world where it's just safe and nothing bad can ever happen. Like that happened to Job. Oh, I didn't deserve that. We richly deserve it. Our nation does. Have I done anything in particular? Well, I've benefited from all the rotten things our country has done. You know, I benefited from it. Am I more innocent than anybody else? Well, you know what? Sometimes bad things happen to good people. You know, but things, we can get caught up in it, just like hurricanes. Hurricanes came and take people's home away. Were they some bad sinners? Because they're, no, that's what happens. That's what it happens. Though he slay me, yet will I'm not going to lift up my voice against him. He's God. He understands. He wounds, he heals, and ultimately this life, the way we live this life, it's given to man once to die. Like Job says, our days are numbered, right? Our days are numbered. And we're going to die. We know we're going to lose this life. And so what we do in it, you know, some people, they live for themselves. They live for pleasure. Yes, amen. Those who are called, all things work together for good for them. Even the things that do not seem good for the time being, like chastisement. But not every bad thing that happens to a good person is chastisement. It might be because you're a beloved son. But oftentimes you can tell that because they often appear as direct consequences so that we know we're being chastised. Anyways, but so they, no doubt, but ye are the people. And wisdom shall die. You know, you're like the pinnacle of everything. He's being somewhat ironic there because he's saying, I'm as understanding as you are, because they're being insulting to him. They're not being very kind. They're continually accusing him in a situation where he is just suffering. Like, I like the way he described, you know, he's straight. He's like, you know, it made me think of like the smoking flax. He describes himself as like chaff ready to blow away. Because before the Lord, all of us are as chaff ready to blow away. Our lives, the nations, are as a drop in the bucket. And God is in control. He's in ultimate control. And that's a lot of what Job is about. And Job is the one who stands up for that. It says, no, the Lord did this to me. And it's not because I've done anything bad. I don't know why he did it to me, and I'm kind of sore about it. You know what I mean? And the Lord does not chastise him for his hard feelings, because he knows feelings are so, you know, he's not a Lord that has not been touched with the feeling of our infirmities, our weaknesses. You know, he was in Gethsemane and even prayed, Lord, if it be possible, it's okay to not want to go through the suffering. It's okay to, in the midst of the suffering, to suffer and to feel it. And it helps us empathize with others who suffer. You know, I certainly, you know, when I think about the world I live in, America, where we're very blessed, my suffering is very small potatoes, man. Though it's hard on me because it's like, you know, you live by comparison to what you see around you. Other people, you feel like they're doing better than you. I try to focus on the people that are not doing so good. People that for whom I actually have the ability to show them favor and mercy. Because it's like, if you're suffering, what'd you ever do to alleviate suffering yourself? To me, I said, it's important to me. Job, he did those things. He was a man who had grown in wisdom and knowledge, calling upon God. I am as one mocked of his neighbor who calls upon God. I call upon God and he answers me. And I'm like someone who's mocked by his neighbor for calling on God and getting results. Or the just upright man who is laughed to scorn. He's saying that's where I am right now because you're falsely accusing me. And they're taking on this sort of air of like, well, Job, if these things weren't happening to, I mean, these things wouldn't happen to you if you were just a good person. You must have done something. You must confess your sin. Let's move on. We know what they're saying. He that is ready to slip with his feet. That's what I meant. That's him. He's talking about himself. He that is ready to slip with his feet is as a lamp despised in the thought of him that is at ease. Meaning, here's what I'm going to start with. I'm going to start with my initial take, and then maybe we'll look at another translation. He that is ready to slip with his feet, it's about to stumble. Just like what Jesus said, whoever would cause one of these little ones to stumble, one who is about to slip with his feet, and that can take on a variety of ways. It can be literally in the sense of like your life is about to end, or you're going to fall into temptation or fall into, a bad situation where, maybe fall among evildoers who might harm you. I mean, that certainly happened to the apostles and prophets of old, and that can happen to us and things like that. So, you can be in a really tough spot. And that person in a tough spot is as, so that's an obvious simile, and we don't have to go back to school to learn that one. A lamp despised in the thought of him that is at ease. Him that is at ease. People that are not in trouble. And so when they look at people in trouble, it's like a lamp despised. Now, I'm going to assume a lamp despised is like an unneeded light. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't need to see that. You know what I mean? Like, it's too bright, too much light. I don't want to see all that. It's like too much. When people don't like to see the suffering going on, they don't want to see things, because they don't want to take responsibility for it. They want to say like, well, that's those people's fault. That's those people's responsibility. It's not my responsibility. I don't want that light being shed. This is the impression I'm getting from this. Because I like stuff like this because it's kind of fun when you get an opportunity to like, what are they saying? Because it's obviously some sort of, not a metaphor, it's literally a simile. He's comparing one who's about to stumble into trouble, into a snare, into whatever. Job's life is on the verge. I mean, he's like, I think I'm about to die. God's unfurled all his weapons against me. I don't know what's going to come next. Death, probably. That's what he figures. Not sure why, but hey, the Lord does these things. Blessed be the name of the Lord. That's all you can say. I agree. It's like, I'm a sinner. I knew my life was short term. I see people die early all the time who probably, am I better than them? That's for sure. I don't know. No, I know I'm not better than them. I'm just the same as them. I'm not inferior to you. I'm not a greater, maybe I should take that in that sense. Like when Jesus said, those upon whom the Tower of Siloam fell, do you think that they were greater sinners? Or the Galileans whose blood Pilate mingled with their sacrifices. Do you think they were greater sinners? Nay, but unless you repent, you will all in likewise manner perish. We're all going to perish, and the ultimate thing we're going to look out for is that ultimate realization with it, which is it is given to men once to die, but after that, the judgment. This life, and what we do with it is important. How we live it out. Making those things work together for our good, manifesting that calling. Because to say I'm called and chosen and all that is fine, but to actually live it out is the proof. That's the proof in the pudding. Because my faith is kind of, faith is, I become his workmanship through faith. And God does works in me as a result of my salvation. And when people aren't saved, you just don't find any of those works being done. Years will go by and no work, none. And it's not about earning salvation. It's just that something got derailed. I don't know. It's diagnostic on the individual case. We know there's a lot of problems, but we also know that the Scripture talks about even in the days of the apostles, it was the same. So false apostles, false prophets, false brethren. In the book of Revelation, the churches are all filled with problems. So it's not like, this is part of the, Satan's always working his ways, whatever he's allowed to, and it's what he's allowed to do. His power is always exousias in the Greek, in the New Testament, which means authority. Just like here, he gave him authority to do all kinds of things to Job, but not kill him. Because the point is, it's not, Satan doesn't really want to kill you. Though he'll take that in the end when he can't, in frustration. He wants you to curse God and die. I mean, then you can die. He wants you to curse God first, then you can die. Yes, he wants you to die. But he wants you to curse God first. So that, he can say, see, your servant, right. But he doesn't get to do that. Because we are genuinely his servants. And there's nothing that can separate us from God's love. Because we are the called according to his purpose. Right? That is truly the reference. Because it's like, that's the thing. It's like Job is not in trouble here. We know from the beginning he is not being punished for anything. He may have had sins in the past. He's not denying that. He's just denying that, that Job, what did you do? Because he's such evil has befallen him. They're like, you raped a kid. Sorry, I shouldn't use that word. They're probably whatever. Maybe early in the thing that's like, oh, the word's censored. I don't know. You did something awful, Job. You did something evil. An act of pederasty. There we go. Should have used that one. You did something terrible. Where are the bodies buried? You gotta, for all your sake, all that to happen. I mean, and the thing is, like Jesus, and then what's Job's answer to that? The tabernacles of the robbers prosper, but not me. Okay? They that provoke God are secure. Into whose hand God bringeth abundantly. All right, but me, not so. I'm, that's probably about as bitterest words. The Psalms talk about this too. I almost slipped and didn't realize. Then I went into God's temple and I realized that the judgment, and you look at Job when he starts questioning the resurrection, he has no specific revelation like we do. We have a New Testament revelation. Faith in the resurrection of Jesus is like central to Christianity. Job does not have that understanding. He's living in a different time, but like I said, still under grace, because I don't understand how anyone can operate with God, that he's accepting sacrifices. Blood sacrifices don't take away sin. The animals of goats and oxen, their blood does not remove sin. It's because it only works if God accepts it. And ultimately, Christ's blood is the substitute for all sin. So in the end, that mercy is looking in hope towards the Messiah. And when I think about, as they say, Old Testament saints, I presume they will appear before Christ's throne and be judged on the mercy basis of whatever they're receiving. Because God judges based on faith and mercy. Or by works. I don't want to be judged by my works. There's a throne of mercy, and then there's a throne of... I want to come boldly to that throne of grace. Not wait to the end to get judged. And that's the way it's kind of portrayed. Some men's sins go before them to judgment. Get that plea deal done ahead of time. Don't go to trial. Don't go to the white throne. Come to Jesus, as they say. Come now. And it's right. But Job has done that his whole life in his understanding of what it meant to honor God. He has honored God. He has been mindful of the living his life in a way that's not only beneficial to him and his family, but to the people around him. That's why he has friends and is respected in the community. And he was one of the greatest men of the East, as it says. And this is often true. People get away with it. Like that song, I forgot who sings it. Sorry. Everybody knows that the dice are loaded. Everybody knows whatever, the good guys lost, whatever, right? But the truth is, you know what? The good guys don't always lose. And the bad guys don't always win. But in the earth, sometimes it seems like people get away with things. And sometimes they don't. Sometimes justice is served, There's a mixture. It's not, justice on the earth is not perfect. We don't get perfect justice. It's highly imperfect. But it's not all one side, thank God. God doesn't allow Satan to just do whatever he wants. He is restrained until he won't be. And that's going to be the end of the world. when he's cast out. That's the way I look at it. I believe that's the scripture too. As one mocked of his neighbor who calleth upon God, and he answereth him, the just upright. Well, let's look at the NIV on that verse 5. I'm just curious. I'm guessing it's going to be pretty much. Are they going to try to interpret that? That would be interesting to me. So I'm going to bring you along here if you are watching, and if you're listening, it hopefully won't be too long of me filling the air. There we go. Job 12. Oh, let's try just the devil's translation, since the devil is in this book. I'm just kidding. Those that are at ease have contempt for misfortune, as the fate of those whose feet are slipping. Well, I think that's kind of what I was saying, right? It's like I don't want to. It's like the bad things happening. I don't want to see that. I don't want to know about it. So okay, they put it in a way. It's like I said, it's an interpretation. And they flipped it around, which is okay, because maybe in English that makes more sense. So that's fine. So I come to agreement with them. My interpretation was pretty much what they had. See, as a lamp despised, though, that's kind of, you got to think about that. I like to know that that's what it is, instead of, having them say, that's confusing. Let's remove that. We don't want them to know that. A despised lamp, because it's like, it's something that's, a light is a signal. Well, it can be a signal. It's among other things. It can be like a signal, a light going off. Like an emergency, you got a red light. Like on your dashboard of your car, you got that red engine light or the seatbelt light. Ding, 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 ding. And it's like, that light's annoying because why? Because it's telling me there's trouble. So even though that's, again, you're at ease, right? And a lamp despite, what is a lamp despite? Well, maybe like a lamp signal, like one if by land, two if by sea, right? The British are coming. Oh man, I'm at ease. I don't want to go to war. I don't want to fight. Not that necessarily we should be thinking about fighting in wars like that, but I don't want to get up and do something about this signal going off. You know what I mean? Because I'm at ease. I'm complacent. I don't want to, like, I see the signs, but I don't want to do anything about it. And that's what someone's calamity oncoming, those that are easy, they don't want to do anything about it. That's how you end up with things like the Holocaust. People see this, they're rounding up the Jews. Well, I guess, that's what happens. It's not good. Now ask the beasts, and they shall teach thee, in the fowls of the air, and they shall tell thee. Just the hard reality of existence. God has not made the world for our pleasure. It is crafted in a way to please Him, so that He gets the results He wants. And that's not entirely shared with us. We are put here, and of course, we are who are His chosen. We ultimately receive salvation, and that is His goal, is to raise up sons unto Himself. But in the meantime, we do what we, like, I believe thoroughly in predestination, but I also know that I'm not God. God predestinated things, but I don't have like privy knowledge to all that. So I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. Oh, I've got a book. I've got to react to it. I got words. I got the Spirit. All these things. I got to react to all these things. And while I do believe a lot of it's deterministic, from God's perspective, it's completely deterministic. But when you live it according to, like I said, I don't believe in free will. I believe in me will. I have a will, and I'm following it. And while at times I may feel uncertain, the Lord is not so, uncertain about. He knows where I'm going and what I'm doing before I even do it. But I don't. Just like I remember that Rush song that said, there was one part where they say, if you refuse to choose, you still have made a choice. Just like people say, well, why don't I just sit and do nothing? It's like, that's a choice. It's a really bizarre choice, but that's one. And if that's your will, I'm glad that's not my will. I'm glad that my will is to serve the Lord. It's a good thing to have your will be, but we want to follow that faithfully, like Job did. He was faithful to it. So he's a bit bitter at times, right? I don't want to. I do think he's not wrong though. He didn't say always. They do prosper. Okay, the tabernacles of robbers prosper. They do. And they that provoke. And I tell you, like, even me, when I'm suffering and I'm going through financial difficulties, or for me, it's not so. I don't have financial difficulties because I have no money. So I go through hardships that involve I don't have the money to fix the problem, so I got to fix it myself. And I don't know what I'm doing. And that can be stressful and all that, right? And I try to serve God. I try to be faithful to it. Do I please Him entirely? Probably not. But but we try to do our best, right? Faithfully. But then you have those frustrating things. Things go wrong. You have a hard time. There's no, and then you could think like, well, it's not a big deal. There's not a lot of people that listen, right? You could start thinking like, but people who rip people off and grifters and such, well, they're making money hand over fist. And I could look at my music channel and be like, and suspect, I know that for 4 years they've been censoring stuff. And I'm pretty sure I know that, I can tell the difference. Well, I certainly know. I mean, they actually did censor videos on this channel. But then people doing actual wrong, spreading actual wrong information, but in the name of the government and stuff, they're allowed to prosper. And they get big grants and all kinds of money to do stuff, to make propaganda of lies. Just like we find out with all these USAID things. I can talk all I like about the government because I'm not a charity. But, spending money on all these dubious programs, the money of the people, and to spread all kinds of dubious and evil purposes, to manipulate other countries and all that stuff. We got to stop acting like the world is our, playground. We seem to be on this delusion that like we can do no wrong because of who we are. Speak to the earth, and it shall teach thee, to the fishes of the sea they shall declare unto thee. What? Who knoweth not in all these that the hand of the Lord hath wrought this? God makes these things happen. Even by allowing Satan to do what Satan does. He doesn't have to allow him. He could say, nah, because like I said, I've said this before. He could say, nah, Satan, I know my servant would never deny me. I know it. He does. He knows it. He knows Job was not going to deny him. God isn't curious. Satan is. And what the value of proving it to Satan? Who could tell? Who cares what Satan thinks? But even so, it's glory. For those who seek glory, no guts, no glory, they say, right? And sometimes there's a lot of guts. In whose hand is the soul of every living thing? Our souls are in His hand. And the breath of all mankind. He could wipe us all out, man. He's done it before. I mean, nearly. Doth not the ear try words? The mouth taste His meat. I mean, God, they that are of full age are ready for strong meat and not milk, right? And it's a metaphor for the things, we receive of God, the things we consume, the wisdom, the knowledge, the food of the Spirit, as opposed to, just like carnally, we have to eat bread, but right, man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. And then he talked about, my words are indeed bread, my flesh indeed meat, my blood indeed drink. And again, so, that which God offers us to eat and drink of Himself, the knowledge and such, that's what it's, and you taste His meat. What's it taste like? I've been tasting it for years. It's like, I like the taste of the Lord's table. Does not the ear try word? You hear words. Are they good words? Are they right words? Are they the right words? These are the things we do. With the ancient is wisdom to be able to discern both good and evil. Having our senses exercised, as it says in Hebrews in the New Testament. And the length of days is understanding. There ought to be. There's no fool like an old fool, but, in the length of days, there's certainly the potential. That's why I say the longer you live, works. The thief on the cross had no time for works, and so there's no expectation. But as we walk with God, he is going to work in us. And that's the natural outcome of faith and in the Spirit of God entering into our lives. There's no way around it. If faith without works is dead, because how'd you have faith so long without any works? How are you in the faith so long and you haven't come to the possession of the wisdom sufficient to be a teacher of some sort? I don't mean you have to teach the Bible maybe on the level I do, but you can teach right from wrong to a child. You can teach right from wrong to to others around you, or at least enforce it, or what I don't know, enforce. But I mean, like, be a positive influence among your peers. I certainly know how to do that. I don't have to push people around to be like just influential. Come on, Paul. Influential with my acquaintances. With him is wisdom and strength. He hath counsel and understanding. And also, what he's saying is, hey, wisdom. How many days has God had to build up all this wisdom and knowledge? He is from eternity. So, he has true wisdom and true strength, true counsel and understanding knowledge. It doesn't even compare. And so when what he does, and the wisdom behind it may not always be apparent to us. But, if you go to the judgment, you try to accuse God. Try to tell God that he wasn't just, wasn't fair. You're going to be laughed off of the stand. Because you will be informed. As I said, people do not understand how it is, where we stand. I said, I'm a debtor to even be alive. I'm thankful to be alive. Naked I came in the world. Naked. I didn't do anything to get here. Didn't earn it. It's like some babies starve to death in the cold. They don't deserve that, but neither do I deserve to grow up into a healthy, overweight, middle-aged man. He breaketh down, and it cannot be built again. He shutteth up a man, and there can be no opening. He opens, and no man shuts, and shuts, and no. Jesus said, that's me, by the way. He that shuts, and no man open, no man shuts. That's not something for some delegate. Well, he is the true. He is the only intercessor between God and man. He is the one we all have to face. He is the one whom God has made judge and committed all judgment to. When he breaks something down, that's going to be the end of it. Babylon is fallen and shall rise no more. When he comes, that's the end of that. He withholdeth the waters, they dry up. He sendeth them out, and they overturn the earth. There's this duality of thing. He causes to live, and he brings to the dust. He does both. He wounds, he heals. Job is in denial of the resurrection, or he's deeply questioning it. I think the fact that he's questioning it is like I said. And you can see there's please remember me, he says, We've been talking about that. I want to keep moving. Wow, 45 minutes already. It's like in the waters, he uses these naturalistic examples of the power of nature. And the thing is because what is the sin involved with the waters going and coming? What's the sin? We know the story of Noah, but that's not the story of every flood. With him in strength and wisdom, that's a repeated line. The deceived and the deceiver are his. Yeah, because the deceived couldn't be deceived if God didn't allowed the deceiver to go about doing his deception. And that's just a fact. God is in control. He allows these things. Satan is restrained in his abilities, and that's the point. But that doesn't mean he doesn't have abilities. I certainly don't fear him. I fear the Lord, because the Lord is the one who, I know all things can be taken from me. It's part of the bargain. Our whole life is forfeit. You think you're going to set up your kids. I like the idea of dying and knowing my children will go on and live happy, fulfilled lives. But you don't necessarily get to know that. And that doesn't necessarily, you certainly, after you're dead, you have no control over it. You can't make anything happen. You're out of the game forever. It's certainly this game on earth. Certainly as Christians, we don't believe in reincarnation. There's no you're going to go again and again and again. No, you go down and you lie, you don't get up again. Not till the whole thing's over. Not quite till heaven and earth pass. He thinks it's going to be like when the heavens are all done over, yeah, maybe then the resurrection will come. But there's no resurrection in this life. And he's right about that, with the exception of the things that Jesus did in his lifetime and, of course, Elijah. But, and Elisha also, actually. But, there aren't a lot of resurrections. Honestly, as it goes, there aren't a lot of resurrections in the Bible. There's just a few events. And there aren't even that many, when you consider the span of time it covers, there aren't a whole lot of miracles either, really. They're mostly clustered around Jesus anyways, and a few prophets. He poureth contempt upon princes, and weakeneth the strength of the mighty. Or removeth the speech of the trusty, and people you could rely upon. Suddenly their counsel is, if it goes against his purposes, suddenly smart people will be stupid, and wise people will become fools. And that's many places that's written. We know that's true. He poureth contempt upon princes, weakeneth the strength of the mighty. Their mighty our strength is not to be compared, and it is not really ours. We also, much like the devil, are allowed to do what we can do, what we have authority to do, as far as we can only go so far. At any moment, God could require a soul of us, especially if we go about defying him. That's why people who live violent, criminal lives do not live very long ones. Some robbers are safe and secure. The careful ones that do it in a way that does not attract too much attention to them, and they end up being society coming and making them pay. It's usually the ones that get it done legally, the legalized larceny of politics and regulatory capture and all that nonsense. And discovereth deep things out of darkness, and bringeth out to light the shadow of death. There are deep things hidden in the darkness. So what does the darkness represent? The unknown. Where there's no light. There's nothing to shine and show you where things are. But God is able to penetrate those places that would be impossible to us to go, to find the deep hidden things of darkness. What it's saying is he can access that which is inaccessible to us. Bringeth out to light the shadow of death. And I think he's acknowledging God has the power to reverse death. I don't know if that specifically says that. But also shining a lot on the fact of we are mortal. Men know they are mortal. And the fact that that knowledge of our own mortality could be possibly what that's referring to. And that would make sense. He increases the nations and destroys them. He does both. God bless America. And I hope he keeps doing it, because I got to live here and I don't plan on moving. Right? But we can only do so many awful things. I just prepare to suffer with the rest of the nation the consequences of the sins of former generations. I've opposed the things that were done since the time I understood them to be wrong, which is very early in my life. I've been opposing a lot of the corrupt influences the government. I don't want to get into a long political thing because we only have 10 minutes. I want to get to the end of this chapter. I want to go into the next chapter. Actually, is what I really want to do. But also the idea that some things are hidden in darkness because they're not good. But they're also, there's also treasure in the darkness. Meaning you go into the unknown. Sometimes things are in the unknown because people have done dark deeds and they hide them there. They want them to stay hidden in the place so nobody knows. They did them in darkness. But there's also that idea that down in the dark places, like down in caves and stuff, you can find gold and other useful things. And so that hidden darkness, there's both a negative and a positive aspect. It's not always negative when we talk about darkness. And it certainly doesn't mean sin. It's mostly about the unknown and about that which is hidden. There are things that are hidden in God. God himself is hidden. I remember people laughing when I said that. I was like, don't you know your Bible? He hides himself. Yes, just like Satan is restrained, God, it can be known. The invisible things of him are known. But that doesn't mean that there's no such thing as an unbeliever. What it means, we can infer, because what it says in Romans really is it's saying we can infer right and wrong, and so we're without excuse. Because it's not so much God's person or his nature as a theistic God or something like that's talking about. It's talking about right and wrong, justice, excusing yourself while you accuse someone else. Those matters of conscience that prove that even the Gentiles without the law are a law unto themselves, so they are without excuse. All the world is condemned under sin. There's no one who can claim ignorance. That's what that's about. It doesn't mean like, they know that God exists. No, they know right from wrong because they are made in the image of God and they have a conscience. And you can see that manifest in their behavior. I can see that they know right and wrong. Just like the Romans had laws. They knew that there were some things that were bad you shouldn't do. They had an organized civil society. Even if they were very awful to foreigners, they also took in places, made them part of the empire, and sort of co-opted them by bringing in a stable civil society and sort of seducing the populations like that. That's what empires have done for a long time, and sometimes they try to use those benefits to get the people on board. Nations rise and nations fall, and don't think that same thing can't happen to us. Especially if we think, well, we're Christians, so then we can, we're on God's side, so whatever we do, it must be God's will. I don't know if that works on a national level. I can't. Give me some references on that are not just some Old Testament thing you're really stretching to get to us. And even so, if it is, all my experience with the Old Testament prophecy is like, yeah, there's blessings, but there's also bad things. When we're talking about a nation, when they get up to all kinds of evil. In the days of Manasseh, there was so much bloodshed that even in his grandson's days, it was still for the bloodshed in the days of Manasseh that the nation was being destroyed. They already gone too far. Just the consequences took a couple generations to set in. And it's just part of life. It doesn't matter that, whether you deserve it or not. You don't deserve to live. That's. I shouldn't touch that part of my thing. I might make the wire go bad. So he taketh the heart of the chief of the people of the earth. The heart is their, I think in this context it would be their courage, because heart it sometimes relates to courage. It is this, the metaphorical seat of the feelings, right? Love is a powerful emotion that causes people to, like when you're chief of the people, your love for your people is what leads you. Like Donald Trump loves his country. He loves the people of the country. That's why he wants to do things that benefit the people of the country. Even if maybe he wants to benefit himself also, that's not really the point. When I see other leaders who I feel they have no love for the people. The thing was, when they love, that gives them passion. But when they lose that, they have no heart. And causes them to wander in the wilderness when there's no way. When you lose your leadership, you end up in the wilderness where there's no obvious way to go. And that's where we may be headed nationally, I have no doubt, or the whole world, because maybe not the whole world, but certainly a lot of us in the West, I think we are led by children, by women and children, by metaphorical women and children. It would be better if they were literal women and children that were actually intelligent. But even the men that rule us are children. Not every single one. I'm talking on the world stage. So many of these leaders are actually childlike in their mentality, in their outlook, in their knowledge, and their sophistication, and not in a good way. There's a positive way to be childlike, and there's a negative way to be childlike. Don't let a good metaphor, you can always swing it. Not everyone necessarily, but a lot of metaphors, they swing both ways. Because there's a time for every purpose under heaven. They grope in the dark without light. He maketh them to stagger like a drunken man. The chief of the people. Yeah, when God takes away light, it's like if the light that is in thee be darkness, especially that interior light. How great is that darkness? Because a lot of it begins inside. Out of the heart of man cometh all the evil, fornication, murders, adulteries. All those things they begin in the heart. And so also, it was like we were talking about the sin, but then it was like the other side. Oh, whatever. I just thought it was related to that because not so much to take away the heart of the people of the earth, cause them to wander in the wilderness where there is no way. They grope in the dark without light. One thing that's having their heart removed, having the darkness, being subject to the darkness without an interior light. You know what I mean? Like having your heart beat as it ought to be, to be courageous and also somewhat paternal towards your people as a chief, because leaders need to be somewhat paternal. They look at themselves as the father of the people. Be paternalistic. Be like baby the people. We don't want an infantilized population. Some people do, but we don't. But there's some aspect of that is important. They grow up in the dark without light. He maketh them to stagger like a drunken man. Drunken people tend to stagger and trip over things and get into trouble like that. And the Lord does all these things. He's saying, you've seen it, you've known it. And we're like, so at the end here, I might as well break and just be like, well, there we are. Well, there we are. Because we'd just be going in this chapter, even though it's all the similar. He kind of turns back to talk to them again. I really like this part about accepting his person. I'm going to give a little preview of it. Because we'll talk about more tomorrow. Because this is what does it mean? Will you accept his person? This is an important concept. Very important concept. And we're going to talk about more tomorrow. So, because I do think this is just, I'm glad we're going to start new here. Accepting the person of God. This is why I talk about the book of Revelation, the eternal torment passages in chapter 20, and where it talks about the second death. I think there's a Rorschach test there, because ultimately, there's only two possible interpretations. Either the second death is literally like death, like you go out into outer darkness, and it's just blackness of darkness forever, like death, like you would think it was. Or it's like this weird, you're kept alive in a state of torture forever and ever, literally. So, on one hand, people think, oh, no, you're kept alive in a state of torture, literally forever and ever. And literally. But death is not literal. It's kind of spiritual. You're just spiritually dead. You're alive for real. You're not dead. You're alive forever and ever and ever in a state of torture. Okay. I'm like, but wait a second. Why can't it be the other way? Wait a second. I don't see the old woman. I see the young woman. That ink blot, that's what a Rorschach test is. So when you get ink blot, and I see an old woman. No, I see a young woman, because it's the opposite. I see the other thing. I say death is literal. You literally die. That eternal torment, that's the metaphor. That's the spiritual thing. That's not literally true. And that to me gets down to respecting God's person, because they're like, well, God can torture people forever because he's God. Is that right? Can he do that? If you know what I'm saying? Like, I'd still worship God even if he does unjust things. Now, because that seems like what Job's saying, right? He kills me, yet Job's not saying that's unjust. They're the ones who says, well, if he did that, that would be unjust. They're the ones accusing God of injustice. Because God has done this to Job with no reason other than Satan's provocation. But nothing Job did. It's not a punishment. Right? And so when they don't accept that and say, well, God wouldn't do that. Job, what are you saying? God is unjust? What are you saying, Job, that God is evil? God doesn't if something happens to you, it means you're evil. That's just karma. We know that, I mean, that's kind of gets to karma and stuff like that, which I don't believe in. Because it leads to that kind of wicked thinking. That's not a biblical idea. There's some truth in that you reap what you sow. But the race is not always to the swift. The contest doesn't always go to the strongest guy. There's more to it than that. Very often. But I love this. Will you accept God's person? That if God wants to torture people forever, I'll just make excuses for it. When what actually happens is they get embarrassed about it, they don't want to talk about it. Because they know it's a pretty rotten argument to have to make. Well, I know, and you don't understand. Blah, blah. They get kind of towards what I get to, but they can't really just lean into what God, where he really is positionally, because they have this bizarre and very disturbing doctrine. I used to call it, the eternal torture chamber. And like I said, and so they relegate the idea of death to a quasi-metaphorical spiritual state. And then I'm somehow a heretic for saying, like, well, why can't that be the other way around? And, it hasn't generally been considered terrible heresy to be a annihilationist or something like that. But for some people, it's like a non-starter, and I lose people. But that's the way it is. I try not to be offensive to people who believe it the other way. I just think that people should, if you really believe it, then own it. Own it, man. I'm a fire and brimstone preacher. I mean, I believe in the ultimate, the Lord is not playing around, man. It's for real. You do reap what you sow, ultimately. In the earth, it's not always obvious, but in the end, oh yeah, you reap what you sow. Just don't think you're the judge when you see someone suffering. You go and alleviate that suffering. You're not sitting there judging and say they probably did something to deserve it. Anyways. So that's Job 12. We'll pick it up with 13. We had a little preview of 13, but I like 13, the concept there of respecting God's person. Oh, well, he's a big, important God. Sins against him are more important than sins against... Well, they justify eternal torture. They say a sin against an eternal being is a sin that's worthy of infinite punishment. I mean, they just pull that right out of their hat. But having no... Is there a biblical argument for that? Because the Bible says you shouldn't give someone above 40 stripes lest he seem vile unto you. Man, because people would say, like... Because I'm like, these are men made in the image of God. He's going to torment them forever? And that does? And it keeps someone alive in a state of that pitiful, awful... You ever been tormented in your life? You ever been tormented? I've been tormented. I'm a tormented soul. I've been through torment. A little bit. I can't imagine even my worst moments carried out to infinity. You're a real sadistic piece of work if you believe in that. Like I said, you're respecting the person of that God. I don't. I'm like, I don't know if I could worship a God that's going to torture everybody forever. I guess then he's going to torture me too. Whatever. Because I believe in what's right. I don't believe that's God anyway. So there we go. I wouldn't accuse him of that. It's absurd. And again, to me, it's about disrespecting what's written in the way they wrote it. But I said sometimes he puts things in there like tests, just like Job and Satan. He's testing Job, using the devil. And the devil uses the scriptures, and his servants use the scriptures, and they test us. They try to seduce us. Be faithful to what's written. When we know what's written and we know the truth, no man's going to take that away from us. We can be thankful. Well, thank you for joining me. Look forward to being back again tomorrow. Until then, remember the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy, and he is the fulfillment of the law.
Enter into the rock and hide thee in the dust, for fear of the Lord, for the glory of his majesty. The lofty looks of man shall be humble, and the haughtiness of men shall be bowed down, and the Lord